Good morning. So we were thinking that as the largest, I guess, organization behind event space in Australia through our hotels, we'll give you a little bit of an overview how we see the market and what we think is happening in the future. I guess the first thing we would like us to touch base on is that the business events market, unlike possibly some of the other industries, tends to be a little bit slower in turning around, which is a good thing when you're in an upswing, but it takes a bit longer to turn it around when it goes in the downswing. So when we went through the GFC, we saw certainly a gradual slowdown of the business, but we're now seeing that it's coming back. I guess it's a little bit like an A380. Once it does take off, it keeps a very steady growth and flies beautifully through the sky with lots of people on it. And we hope we're going to have full capacity in all our planes that's going to fly around. In the GFC period that happened leading up to 2010, we certainly saw a slowdown in our business. But 2011 was actually very good for us. We saw a strong comeback for corporate meetings, especially in our hotels. And across Australia, we grew by about 6.8% in our business events business. If you certainly look at the CBD hotels, that grow more than 17%. So it certainly wasn't all doom and gloom in 2011. It was very strong. The biggest gain came from our five-star hotels, which saw very, very strong growth, like the likes of Sofitel with the big ballrooms. As I'm sure you're familiar with the Sofitel Melbourne here and Sofitel Sydney. What we also saw in the turnaround was that with the strong corporate market in our hotels were running at very, very high occupancy. If I look at something like Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane and Perth, there was plus 85% occupancy across the board, which meant that it was quite difficult for the conference organisers to get space in our hotels, accommodation space, and possibly also at the rates they liked, because the rates we were being able to charge were quite nice, I would say, from a hotelier's point of view. This meant that a lot of the conference organisers had to look a little bit further afield for events. And I guess this is what we can call the 200 kilometres or the 2-hour principles. We saw that around our key cities, within easy driving distance, there was an enormous amount of demand for conference venues. So around Sydney, certainly around Melbourne, and in other destinations. This is also very much dovetailing into Accor's development plans in acquisition of new hotels and partnership with franchises. We've very heavily gone after those regional destinations within easy access to the city. None more so than, for example, the Fairmont Resort up in the Blue Mountains, who I'm sure you're familiar, had a little bit of a checkered history towards the end of the noughties, which has now gone through a total redevelopment, has a new owner, and now sits under our M Gallery brand and looking spectacular. And this was a hotel that built pretty much single-handed the business event segment for the Blue Mountains. And when it slowed down, so did the region. And we're now very excited that the new hotel, brand new, is bringing back the business event market to the Blue Mountains. Other destination in New South Wales is Quinda Waters on the Central Coast, and I'm sure you're familiar with Bellachara down in Gerringong. Now the two hotels that came under the fold under the Accor brand. And we're actually finding that the Accor brand is having very good success in regional Australia. It is one of our fastest growing brands in Australia. And the good thing about the Accor brand, it's very easy for it to connect with the local community and a local feeling. These are hotels that has its own identity and connect locally. Other destinations such as Capricorn Resort up in Queensland, and of course Clearmount Lodge northwest of Brisbane are the destinations that perfectly fit into that local feel for Accor hotels. If we go to the other side of the continent in Perth, now we can all begrudgingly complain about the mining industry taking all the space in our hotels, but obviously we shouldn't forget that it was the mining industry that very much supported our economy, especially in times now when the financial services are possibly going through a little bit of a tough time. So the mining boom has helped us, but again, it has led to that it's been possibly a little bit difficult to finding space in Perth. So what we've seen as an emergence in trend for Western Australia is more weekend conferences in Perth when occupancy are a little bit lower, but also in regional destinations. So for example, like the Novotel Vines Resort has done extremely well, again with that easy reach and destination from a key gateway. My colleague Neil Scanlon will talk about Queensland and the growth we had in Queensland, especially through some of the events they had last year, not special events, but more natural events. So I won't touch so much about that. But let's talk about Victoria, for example, the state we're in. Now, it was seen that with all the new hotel that came during the GFC, that it was bad timing for this new hotel supply that came down in Melbourne. But it was interesting that it was quite easily absorbed into the market. And we took a little bit of, I guess, the lead from some of the Asian capitals, build it and they will come. And that was certainly true for Melbourne. Melbourne built a tourism infrastructure which was second to none, I would say, in Australia, and they've done a really good job in attracting major events. That certainly did benefit all of us in the destination. And if we look at something like Australian Open, which just was finished, there was a 5% increase on visitors numbers, so there certainly wasn't a downturn in that. In our hotels, during the 2-week period, we're running on an average of 92% occupancy. Which I would say it's the only event in Australia where you can run at such high occupancies over a 2-week period. So I think, you know, there are possibly a lot of doom and gloom out there. I don't think necessarily substantiated. A lot of it can be turned around with positive feedback. We are very, very confident on the market moving forward. And I think it's a lot of the perception. I know it's been a lot of written in the media about Australians are very good at picking at themselves and talking down themselves. But we feel we're very, very confident in this, moving it forward. And so much we are upgrading a lot of our hotels. And again, here in Melbourne, our Accor Hotel on Spring Street, which is just going through a massive refurbishment, and will be the first Accor hotel in Australia that has the new global Accor room. And I certainly will welcome any chance for you to come and visit it. It's a very new, innovative way of designing a hotel room, and we're actually one of the first hotels with a full refurbishment with Accor globally down here. It will be launched next week as Accor Melbourne Treasury Gardens, and of course we take it from there, the overlook or the view over the beautiful gardens across the street. And I guess leads me sort of in a segue on the green criteria. Accor brand is very much of our green brand. We have the carbon neutral meeting, which we have been running for a number of years. And there are a lot of hotels out there that purport to be green, which is great. I think we have a slightly different take on that for the Accor brand, in the way that it's actually the hotels that pay for the carbon offset and not the clients that attend. And so far in 2011, our Accor hotels had a 26% increase in business. And thanks for that big volume, we were able to, from the hotel's point of view, offset about 2,000 tons of carbon offset. Not that you would drive around Australia to waste all that, but it would take you 576 times to drive around Australia, or 24 times to the moon is the equivalent of that. So we're very proud of that. And as a fact, Accor is announcing next month, in April, a new global initiative that shows a true commitment to environment and sustainability. So watch this space. I can guarantee it will take you to a different planet. Now, if you go up to Sydney, we spoke about special events and conventions that Melbourne has done really well. Of course, the Sydney Convention Exhibition Centre. We all know it's long overdue in its total refurbishment, and it certainly has been part of a reason why we haven't seen any new hotels in Sydney. As a matter of fact, and you're probably aware of this, that the only hotel that was built up until recently since the Olympics was a 90-room Ibis in King Street Wharf. Now there are some new development coming along, and we're very excited about that. We also did add in around 2000 2 new hotels at Olympic Park, which again has seen an increase of about 35% in the business events segment. And we also believe that with the increase of businesses moving to the western suburbs of Sydney, it's going to be an increasing strength and focus. There's much more sport events. We have, of course, the new football clubs that are opening up there, and the western suburbs is really coming to strength, both as a corporate or leisure venue. And when whatever happens to the Sydney Convention Centre soon, we certainly know we can absorb the demand up in western suburbs for special events. Now, I will talk a little bit about outbound and how we see the impact of the strong Australian dollars, but I'm sure you're also interested in hearing about our latest acquisition, the Mirvac. There's nothing much, honestly, to tell about Mirvac at this stage. The settlement will go through mid-year this year. Mirvac is a fantastic brand, and they have a fantastic product, especially well suited for the business events market. They have some very, very strong domestic brands, and we certainly will not go through and try to switch over everything in one go. We don't need to. It's a very good company. We will go through hotel by hotel and see the right fit for the market, and we will work with the Mirvac and with all the individual owners to find a sustainable long-term strategy for those hotels. But as I said, they're performing very well, so there's no need for us to rush. What we will be able to provide for the Mirvac hotels in Australia is international distribution. And it is this distribution muscle that Accor does provide for our hotels that is our strength for that. And if I look at, for example, some of the near neighbors such as China, India and Indonesia, these are markets that have performed extremely well for the current Accor hotels, from the business events market as well as for the leisure markets. And we did actually introduce optimum service standards for China and India, which I'm sure you've heard about. And the concept there was to look after our guests from China and India exceptionally well with introducing services, food products, television channels and news papers in our hotels, and to get a better cultural understanding in our hotels for this. And we believe that we can certainly extend that to more hotels and help the Mirvac hotels benefit from this market. And I think today it's certainly providing a unique offering. That is what we're all about, and we need today provide a very, very unique offering. And an ex-Accorian Ray Stone will tell you certainly about the very, very unique offering that ES Rock provides and will provide moving forward. So although we have a very strong Aussie dollar, it does mean that people go overseas for conferences. And if I look at a destination like Fiji, Sofitel Fiji, which has gone through renovation, is still running at very, very high occupancy thanks to the conference and incentive business going to Fiji. It's a very, very strong product. In New Zealand, the same point there. Because of the short flight time, New Zealand's doing very well. Our Pullman in Auckland, which we launched last year, is a very, very strong contender for business from Australia from that. And we have 4 hotels in Queenstown that are specialized in this market. For example, the M Gallery St. Moritz in Queenstown that has a specific media studio on property to help with special requirements, and also very popular with, for example, car commercials, which is often filmed down there for that. Further afield, Thailand. I had the privilege to see some of our new hotels in Thailand. We are opening next week Sofitel So in Bangkok. We have opened the Hotel Muse, which sits on the M Gallery, and we'll very soon open the Sofitel Sukhumvit in Bangkok. So with more than 20 hotels in Bangkok, we're certainly taking the lead from Build It and They Will Come, and you will see the quality of the product up there. The key thing for us is that when it comes to business events, it is very much of an intra-regional business. We certainly would like lots of business from Americas and from Europe, but the strength is within the region. And I think that that's where we will see the continued growth, and that's where we're going to focus on building a hotel. As a matter of fact, a third of Accor's development for the next couple of years is in Asia Pacific. And one of the strongest brands from that is Pullman, and you will see a lot more about the Pullman brand. We're opening 5 in China this year, but 2013 you will see an explosion of Pullmans in Asia. But we will save that for the next aim for next year, and when we make Pullman 2013 the year at aim.